Okay, my name is Alba Tomsula y Garcia. I'm a fourth-year English major here at the university, and hey, just getting ready to graduate.
That's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
So can you tell us about your project? Do you have a name for it? What medium it's in?
Sure. So my project was really inspired by this paradox that we seem to be living in regards to the natural world, where on one hand I feel that the 21st century, perhaps more than many other centuries, is extremely aware of human impact on the environment, on animals, on natural systems as a whole. And yet this is also the age in which has been described as the sixth mass extinction, where now perhaps more than any other time, we do have the capacity and are acting upon that capacity to completely alter the ecosystems, whether it's to our liking or not to our liking, but it happens anyway. So my project is entitled 13, and the main focus of it is to create 13 different images of 13 species that have gone extinct within the first 13 years of this century. Each one, it will be focusing on an animal that has gone extinct starting from the year 2000 to the year 2013. The project is going to be executed in ink and pen on blank paper. And the paper itself is going to be 17 by 14 inches. Although the animals in there that I'm planning to draw are going to only take up a small portion of the paper, since I want to get it across with the sense that these are creatures that have existed, and yet, for the most part, their disappearance has gone largely unnoticed.
What made you, what generated your interest in this field of science? You said you're an English major, but you also volunteer at the Field Museum with all these different areas of study.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I guess that I should say that in addition to being an English major, I'm also a biology and environmental studies minor. And it's really an effort on my part to kind of create my own major in a relatively new field within the humanities. Well, it's really a very expansive field called animal studies, which, in my case at least, is the study of the representation of animals in culture at large, and how exactly these representations affect actual behavior towards animals, and often towards other human groups, and towards the natural world as a whole. So, I guess you could say, first of all, that I don't remember a time in my life when I haven't been interested in animals, but this seemed like a really good way to try to reflect and come to some understanding as to why we act the way that we do act, in all of its many forms towards the natural world.
How did you select the 13 animals that you have selected?
Well, the selection process is still going on, and I'm trying to find a good balance between both creatures whose extinction was commented upon and was noted, such as the black rhinoceros, as well as creatures whose extinction kind of passed by without that much commentary. I would like to try to find a balance between these two things, both to try to understand under what circumstances creatures go extinct, what different types of creatures might go extinct in these radically changing conditions that we're now living in, as well as why exactly one creature might receive attention for its ultimate demise and why another may not. A lot of these seem to really depend heavily on things such as, well, particularly if it's a mammal or if it's not a mammal, or how cute it might be as compared to something else.
Let's talk about the medium pen you said it was in. How long have you been working in pen?
Well, let's see. I guess that I would say that pen and ink has been one of my first loves in making art. I'm dabbling right now. I'm taking a painting class right now, in which is my first time to really try out with oil, but I'd have to say that pen and ink has always been a medium that I've been particularly comfortable and confident in. I know that it's a really permanent medium, so I don't know if that's part of the reason why I love it so much. It can be hard to correct mistakes with it, but even so, there's just something about it, I think particularly because of the way that one can mimic the scientific engravings of the past, that has just really stuck with me and made me love it.
When did you start, at what age, and who introduced it to you?
Let's see. Well, my mom is actually an art professor at the University of Notre Dame, so I guess you could say that I did grow up with a lot of art materials. But I didn't really start taking it seriously until I was around, I guess it would be about when I was 13 years of age, when I visited a museum called the Museum of Jurassic Technology. And there I was introduced to the work of a French illustrator named Granville. And his engraving, somehow more than any other artist I had encountered up to that point, just really struck me. Kind of made me realize what art can and cannot do. So kind of following off of his work, I started to try to copy everything that he did, start to get a little progressively better. Although I will admit right now that I would be so terrified of making a mistake at times that I would be checking with my mom at most every single line whether it was okay. Frustrated her to no end. But now I can confidently say that I'm much better than I was at first starting out. But yeah, I guess that it would be my original love of Granville that first sparked this.
What would you consider like a mistake in terms of pen?
Well, there could be many different forms of it. It's happened to me multiple times, for example, that I'll be inking something in and then I'm using dip pen. Suddenly a lot of ink will just splash out all of a sudden. That can be incredibly frustrating. If my hand shakes a little bit too, then that becomes really apparent in some cases and doesn't look good at all. In other cases, it's often happened to me too that I wouldn't even realize that I've messed up the anatomy of a drawing, whether it be a human or an animal, until I've inked it in, and that can be the most frustrating of all because I feel that I have to just start all over.
Would you say that you have your own sort of style when it comes to ink?
I'm not exactly sure. I guess that I'm developing my own style, but I would still say that it's very reminiscent of two of my primary models, which would be the works of Granville and various scientific illustrations.
Mm-hmm. So what's your favorite part of the artistic process?
I guess it would have to be a tie between thinking up a concept, drafting it out, and then the final stage that I'm actually inking it in.
Mm-hmm. How long do you think it's going to take you to finish all 13 ink drawings?
Well, I'm hoping to get at least most of them done by the time that the FOTA arts competition comes around, but I'm trying to shoot for around 2 a week.
Mm-hmm. Do you know where they'll be displayed?
What I proposed and which I'm hoping is going through is that I'll be able to display these in a variety of buildings around campus, with the intention being to kind of force a viewer to suddenly notice this sudden blank space in whatever environment I end up putting my work in, as well as hopefully to spark some interest into why that blank space created by the extinction of the beast that I'm representing exists in the first place.
Are you going to include like a caption or a brief description with the ink pieces?
Mm-hmm. In addition to the illustration of the animal itself, I'm planning to include only a little bit of information about them. Right next to it, giving the common name, the scientific name, the year when extinct, and cause of extinction.
Mm-hmm. And what about the photo show are you most looking forward to?
I guess that I'm just really looking forward to seeing the types of other art that U of C has funded and what other people are interested in representing in their own art. I feel that we live in a very interesting age when that's concerned with things such as postmodernism to post-human, and it seems that art is a really good way to explore these different concepts. So, especially since we have the entire history of art behind us, I'm really looking forward to seeing what other students are making of this and coming up with on their own.
Would you like to, in the future, sort of encourage this greater combination of science and art? Do you have any comments about that sort of intersection?
Oh, definitely. I guess that it was something that started to really strike me when I was lucky enough to take, when I was lucky enough to study abroad in a program called Primates in Paris. And it was there that I encountered not only some of the science behind the reconstruction of fossil primates in this case, but also how much is really left to the human imagination, how much, in fact, has to be left to the human imagination to understand what some of these creatures may or may not have looked like. And I feel that that's something that's really true to just even in strictly scientific ways of trying to understand the world. I really don't think that anything could be completely objective, and that many even scientific experiments are heavily dependent on what larger cultural biases and perceptions are. I mean, it's something true for both the humanities and the sciences. I feel that these two fields really influence, encourage, and determine what the other one is. That the kind of science that's done in one age is heavily dependent on what the humanity, or what language and literature may be saying, and what literature may be saying itself is heavily inspired and influenced by what scientific endeavors and creations may be.
What are some of your favorite novels?
Let's see. I guess that one of my favorites would be An Imaginary Life by David Malouf. It's a pretty interesting story of, well, it's the imagined life of the poet Ovid after he's been exiled from Rome. And the story itself surrounds Ovid, and the story itself surrounds this imagined Ovid trying to come to grips both with being thrust out of this civilized realm into a barbaric realm, as well as his attempts to civilize this feral child that he finds within the wilds that he has come to live in. And the story itself I find really fascinating because of the really honest struggles that it shows between both forms of communication and trying to comprehend the other. In this case, this almost animalized human, a feral child, as well as the kind of ambivalence that it portrays throughout the entire story in regards to the struggle of communication. It's never really resolved, and one gets a sense that it never can be completely resolved. But it doesn't suggest at the same time that that is excuse enough to then hate other forms of life. So I find it a really interesting story. In fact, I'm writing my BA about it.
Oh. Has that novel sort of influenced your life after studying it for such an extensive period of time for your BA?
Yeah. Well, I have to say that I really do admire the honesty in which it tries to discuss both the violence and the love that often or that are just as equally important in trying to communicate or understand other life forms, whether they be human, animal, plant. Particularly since there definitely seems to be a tendency to go to extremes. That it's something that the philosopher Donna Haraway has discussed a lot, for example, or Mary Midgley in her really excellent book, Animals and Why They Matter. That there's a tendency to either think of the other, I'll just say animals, for example, as creatures that we either have nothing whatsoever in common with, or creatures that we must have everything in common with. And it really leads to a lot of disappointment and hurt on both sides. So I really do feel that studying this book has made me try to struggle harder myself to both understand the extent to which other creatures are like me, but also be respectful of the differences between me and other beings.
Do you have any final thoughts or message for the viewers or anyone who's going to see your art or this documentary?
I guess I would say to just be mindful of the way that both art and sciences are constantly influencing our perceptions of the world at large, and the way that they can spark these really interesting discussions about what we can and cannot be as humans.